Hang on just a second, Eric. I've got Eric on the phone with me. He's got a configuration speed issue for his network adapter. Comcast came out to the house, did some work, and made recommendations that sounds like it's going to involve me. So go ahead, Eric. Give us the rest of the description.
Okay, so Xfinity technician just left the house. He checked my modem, checked all the lines, checked the box on the outside of the house, ran all the tests with all the equipment that he has. Said everything was fine, came into the house with his cell phone, connected to my Wi-Fi. He was able to get over 750 as far as download speed over Wi-Fi, and I never even come close to that being hardwired with an Ethernet cable. So what they recommended is that it might be some kind of auto-negotiate setting, which is capping the amount of speed that I'm able to get.
Okay.
But other than that, they said all my hardware itself was fine.
Okay. So let's get me connected to your computer. Go to the website logmein123.com. It should be asking you for a 6-digit PIN code.
Okay.
The code is 739131. You're going to get hit with a few questions. Just answer affirmative for each of the questions. Yes, allow.
So start download, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, connecting. Okay. Yes.
You probably have a message now to affirm.
Right.
Okay. Do you see the mouse moving on your screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to close this window. Bring your screen up full size. Minimize that. And then come down here to, well, you know what, before we do that, this weather information to the right of the mouse right now, do you like that? Can I turn that off?
Yeah, go ahead and turn it off.
Yeah, because
It's mainly for my wife, but
well, it was pushed to computers as an update a few weeks ago, and it kind of slows computers down. It's really kind of a nuisance. It can be, we can change it so it just shows the temperature without showing the news and interest. It's the news and interest pop-up that is a nuisance. So you're set for public network. The only reason we would care about that is if you share printers or share files between different devices in your home. Is that a yes or a no?
Sometimes my wife will print things from her phone over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, whichever one it is.
That's okay, as long as that's working. She's probably printing direct to the printer, not
Right.
printing to your computer and then
Right,
to
so
the printer.
as far as that, then no, I don't think there's any other devices that are doing
Okay,
that.
so we don't care about changing that from public to private. So let's go into Ethernet over here and change adapter options should be it. I think you have dark mode on, I guess. And so this gives us the Ethernet adapter here. I did a single left click on it. Now I'm doing a right click to get the context menu, choose properties. And then we're right here, which shows you have a gigabit adapter. So it's nice that we actually see that in the name. We know that it's capable. I think your Comcast technician probably already looked at that. And then to get to the auto negotiate, I think it's going to be right in flow control. All right, nope, that's not it. It is speed and duplex. Auto negotiate is already selected. And we can make these individual selections, and there is a 1 gigabit full duplex. So we may wind up coming back in here and trying to force it to 1 gigabit, but I want to check something else first. I'm going to right click here on the adapter and choose status. And this right here tells us your adapter is functioning at 1 gigabit per second. So you're probably asking me about this because you're finding your maybe a speed test is not showing you good numbers.
Right.
Okay, so let's go try Google Chrome.
And like I said, the other part of that is the technician on his phone over Wi-Fi was able to get a lot faster speed than I'm able to get on the computer. So,
Okay. Let's go see what is telling us that you're not getting good speed. So I'm going to use this speed test because it's what I'm most familiar with. So that's a pretty good speed. Some people are going to be seeing this video and says, man, I wish I could have that much. What is it about that you identify as not being good speed?
it's not what I'm paying for, and that's kind of the whole issue. Is I'm trying to get to the point where I need to figure out if I'm wasting my money or if there actually is something as far as a setting that's slowing me down. But while it's true that I do have a pretty stable and pretty fast internet connection, the fact that I'm paying for a gig but not even getting half of that just has kind of always been a concern. Like if I'm paying for a gig but only getting, I say only, getting 340 or 476 or whatever the number happens to be at the time, then maybe I can consider downgrading to paying for 800 rather than paying for a gig. So it's not that it's not fast enough, it's more a matter of wanting to get closer to what I'm paying.
Okay,
for.
you want to see numbers that indicate performance akin to what you're paying for.
Right.
So I'll make this observation, and we will get responses and comments to this video from other people, either affirming or denying or telling of their experiences. And I think that's going to be really informative to us. I've never seen a Windows 10 computer really go much above this, even when their service is a gig up and a gig down. When you have service a gig up and a gig down, you're still benefiting from it because you can have multiple computers in your home pushing the limits, and combined they are adding up to a gig up and a gig down. Now, the actual reason why these speed tests don't show it on any particular computer, I don't know, maybe having to do with the design of the speed tests themselves, because they were designed in an earlier era. But let's just see what we currently get on a search. Why does my internet speed not indicate 1 GB?
And the other, kind of a side note, maybe it's related, maybe it isn't, the other issue that I tend to have, not knowing if this is natural or common or odd, is the longer the computer stays on, the more drop off in speed I'll get. I don't know if that's natural or has something to do with something else. So
yeah, it can be natural in the sense that your computer may have more going on with its memory, more things going on with Google Chrome and the stuff that it does in the background, the stuff that Microsoft Windows does in the background. So yeah, now the fact that the Xfinity technician was getting 700 some odd on his cell phone through Wi-Fi, that is kind of an affirmation that you probably are getting it. But most significantly, and this is a deduction on my part, and I kind of like to see confirmation from, there's a lot of really helpful, useful, smart people that are watching my videos these days, and I'm sure they're going to pipe in with some additional information. Frustrating for sure. You're taking all the steps to get the fastest possible 1 gig, latest Wi-Fi, etc., but you'll never see. Okay, it may seem like a travesty to only get half of what was advertised, but the fact is you'll never see 1 gigabyte speed on your phone, and the difference between 451 gig to a single device is absolutely nothing in the real world. Well, I think what they're saying there is the difference between those speeds is nothing in the real world, meaning you won't experience that in your actual usage. You're only going to see that in a test, in a number. We spoke with experts in the field, access networks, combination, Wi-Fi standards. This is kind of focusing on Wi-Fi. How we got to those numbers. In this blog, we'll discuss how we got to those numbers, limiting factors, what key performance indicators to use when sizing up a home network. So this is just the first hit that we went and looked at a little bit. I'm not going to read through it all, but I really think that the conclusion of this is going to wind up being that you are benefiting from the gig up and down, even though you don't see it on a speed test, because you can have multiple devices in the house doing heavy traffic and they never get bottlenecked at all. Now, watching videos, having many tabs open in Google Chrome, the things that normal users do are never going to fill up even a tenth of that on any normal moment throughout the day. I have a client who frequently uploads her edited videos to YouTube and other sites, and she's a person who can really see the impact of that by virtue of how long it takes for an upload or a download to take. So if you are downloading large files from multiple different devices in your home and or uploading large files from these multiple devices, that's where you're really going to experience the benefit of the gig up and gig down. You posed the question somewhere along the line here, should you be paying for this? And I don't know what you're doing currently with your computers in the home, but my guess is if you're paying extra for this, probably not. Now, I have had clients who, when they talk to Xfinity about their plan, they have found that Xfinity can actually reduce their monthly expense and give them gig up and gig down for less money than they were paying for their much lower speed, because they're actually switching them over to a connection type that has some fiber optic involved. And so just by putting you on the new plan, you got this major boost in speed, but you'll never see it on a speed test.
All right. Now, I don't know if this information helps at all, but it may speak to some of the things that you just said. The fastest speed in a speed test, as far as what I can see as a layperson, if I close everything and not necessarily make sure nothing's running in the background, but just do a power off and then power on, or do a restart, and then do a speed test without opening any other, using it for watching videos or Zoom, just anything. That's when I get my fastest speed using Edge. I think Edge tends to be the fastest,
right,
as far as running a speed test.
Right.
And that will only give me around 579 maybe, and that's before, like I said, doing anything else with the computer at all. I don't know if that's pertinent information, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah. That doesn't change anything that I was thinking of, but let's go take a look at something here. Let me bring up this status screen. I'm going to bring up a couple other pieces of statistics here. So I'll get Task Manager, and go to more details. I did Task Manager by right click on the taskbar and then choose Task Manager, then go to Performance, Files. Oh geez, I've been talking about this and I haven't had it on screen. So I kind of messed up as far as the video goes, so I'm going to keep doing it. You're seeing it all right, but as far as me publishing this video, the viewers haven't been seeing it. If I was doing this during a live stream, I've got some people on the live stream with me that have my cell phone number, and they would have texted me. And I've got an alarm that rings on my cell phone to let me know that. So there, we're up at 582, and I think we were on the 1 megabit per second scale up here a moment ago. So now it looks like we're not even going to get 300 megabits per second on this run. But anyway, what I was getting at is if you were doing a large file download or upload, as far as I know, and I don't, this is a deduction, this is maybe wishful thinking. It could be that Comcast has technology within their system to give you priority when you're doing large uploads or downloads. And when we're seeing that speed test after speed test, it was, I think, maybe the third speed test that I did, which I didn't capture on video, that actually gave us a 700 or 800 megabits per second.
Right.
So this is all a really nebulous area. I haven't seen good information published or made available to explain why we get what we get. But certainly if you were not paying for gig up and gig down, you're never going to get these numbers above 500, which here, this one's good.
This here it's back up to the...
Yeah, there we got the 800.
Right, which I would be more than happy with if it was something that could actually be,
relied upon. Now, the test that I would want to do to find out if that's the case is I would want to... we'd have to set it up, and I'm interested in doing this with you if you're interested. I know you kind of have a technical mind and you might bite on this invitation, but we would set up a really large file on each of the computers that you have available in your home and initiate an upload for all of them at the same time that we expect to run a few minutes. And then see how long it takes for X number of bytes over a period of minutes and do the math and see what you actually get.
I'm fine with that. And this is the only computer that we have in the house.
Okay. Well, then we could do it with this computer. We just want to use, what would you, I have my video files. We can just download one of the videos from my channel
for that. As far as that whole subject,
yeah.
I don't think we ever really download or upload any kind of files at all. Maybe small things from the internet, a picture,
right?
Something like that, clip art. But we're not the kind of users where large files are constantly coming in and going out.
Right.
So I don't know if that matters, but
yeah, well, it does matter, and the way that it matters is my earlier comments about I don't think you'd ever notice this. I think it is clear from what we're doing here that you are getting gig up and down. It's just not consistent at that with speed tests, and there's something about the design of speed test or the technology behind Comcast Xfinity of how it achieves the number 1 gigabit per second that is just never going to result in a consistent speed test.
And I understand that part of it. I guess the follow-up question would be consistent, maybe one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, I guess, would be I'll use the word acceptable, knowing that may not be the right word. Is there an acceptable level of variance between the lowest speed and the highest speed that would be
Yeah,
normal.
I understand your question, and I think it's a valid question because this fluctuation of speed is disturbing to
Right.
a person who pays money for service at a certain level, and to see numbers that are implying that you're not getting that at any level of consistency, even admitting that you're never actually going to experience a hindrance in what you're actually using the internet for. It's still a bang for your buck kind of satisfaction. So, and is your level of difference normal, or do some people get much more stable,
Right.
much more consistently at the high numbers? I think that's a really valid question to ask. Now, I've also observed, without really affirming it through prepared testing, but I think you would find at times of day when your neighborhood's likely to have lower Comcast activity that you'll find more consistency in numbers. We're doing this at 12:08 p.m. So it's lunchtime for people that are doing work, which means they may be doing more video stuff. It
Right.
could be that you have people in your neighborhood that do more unstable utilization of their internet service, and therefore that means your experience is less stable on these speed tests. So if you're to do these types of speed tests over and over and over again, like I'm doing, late at night, 2 a.m. in the morning type of thing, it would be interesting to me if you find it more stable. But it's only interesting. It doesn't
The
really.
answer to that would be like I've run speed tests exactly what you said, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, all different times of the day. It doesn't. The speed test that I see just by using an online speed test doesn't really change. The results don't really change based on the time of day or night.
Okay.
It all stays pretty much the same.
Okay. And that was only a theory on my part, or
Right.
suspicion, and
I mean, for example, and it's just a different way probably of saying something I've already said, is, for example, if there's a fluctuation or even a major fluctuation in speed, if we could figure out or get to the point where, say, 500 was the lowest instead of the highest, then that would mean that the highest would be maybe 700 or 800. It would still fluctuate, but we would have gone through a process to raise the lowest default level of speed, maybe is what I'm thinking.
all right.
And what? But
So we've already touched on. You've mentioned about how after the computer's been on for a while, it seems like you get different speeds. There's certainly what is open in the background. Let's see, this is a music Spotify free back there. It can be doing some things in the background. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the background in your operating system on the computer. There's of course all the Google Chrome stuff in the background. So one of the things if I were to really try to do an academic study of this, I think something I would do is do a fresh install of Windows 10 on a computer so there's nothing else on it, and then also trim it down even more to get rid of some of the background clutter and see what happens then. But it's totally an academic study.
so let me ask you this: are you specifically doing anything that's resulting in 800, 700, or 800 in one test, and then 290 or 300 on the next test, or do you just everything's staying the same? You just keep running the test
Yeah.
over and over again?
Everything's just staying the same. I'm just clicking that test
Wow.
button over and over. And those are wildly fluctuating numbers.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that's if that's a commonly reported thing. And seriously, after I publish this, I expect some of the people who follow my videos will try this on their own computer and tell us in the comments what their experience is. And it would also be interesting, of course, for people that use Comcast Xfinity. That is apples for apples comparison, but people that are using AT&T Uverse or some other type of connection, it'll be interesting to see if other types of connections experience more stability.
And that was going to be one of my questions: is if you had any experience with what AT&T calls a gig, and anyone out there in computer land. If that's a better option, at least as far as a more stable connection, AT&T versus Xfinity.
Yeah, I don't know that. I have not investigated that. Based on the description that has been repeatedly normally floated around the internet, the description of Comcast Internet, your neighborhood has more impact on your internet experience than with other connections.
Now, one of the other things that came up in a phone conversation I had with Xfinity, one of their, I think it was their loyalty department, I think is who I ended up talking to, is when discussing the issue of downgrading my package from paying for a gig to paying for 800 megabytes, that there might be a possibility, according to them, that I would actually increase my speed, because the way I heard what they were saying, and you know how I tend to describe things, if you take a straw and put it inside of a thick McDonald's milkshake, you're going to have to work really hard to get the milkshake to pass through the straw. But if you take the same straw and put it in a large Coke, the Coke's going to flow through the straw a lot faster. Meaning behind all that is, if I lowered the speed that I'm paying for, would it actually pass through whatever it needs to pass through at a higher speed? And that's something it goes beyond my level of understanding. It's just something that they suggested.
Yeah, I find that hard to buy. The place, the angle that I think that their comment may make sense is if you downgrade the speed that you're paying for, you may get a higher percentage of the speed that you're paying for.
Right.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me. But I won't deny that there could be something about that technology that I'm not aware of that might give their statement more credibility, but I'm real skeptical.
So all of the running the test over and over again, is it basically telling you that the computer itself is capable of handling 700, 800?
Oh, absolutely.
If just for some reason it's not.
Absolutely. Let me go back to what the Xfinity technician told you to have me check on is auto negotiate. So let me show you what the other choices are that auto.
You said that the 1 gigabyte setting might be something we might have to go back to.
That we might have to force, but I no longer believe that because of that status number that we showed. It was showing a stable 1 gigabyte. Now, if we come over here to, let's see, that was on advanced. Come over here, and I think both of those tabs give access to the same settings. Seems like it wasn't that far down. Where was that? Capability status, class, driver day, matching service. Why am I not seeing it now?
Was it in advanced?
Oh yeah, that's what I thought I clicked on. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Speed and duplex. So auto negotiation means that your network adapter is going to choose to run at 1 gigabit per second or 100 megabits per second or 10 megabits per second. So we're clearly well above, consistently above 1 megabit per second, 100 megabits per second.
Right.
None of those speed tests were below that number. So we've clearly been negotiated at 1 gigabits per second. Now, let's go ahead and click on this 1 gigabit per second. So now we're forcing it, and what we're doing here is we are preventing your network adapter from even taking the time to negotiate.
Okay.
We're telling it, don't bother discussing this, just work. Yeah.
Don't think, just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that kicked me off of your system temporarily because it was making a change to your network adapter. So now I'm clicking to go back in. And I think I'm going to have to click again, which is kind of commonplace when I get kicked out for mucking around in the system. We're going to come back in here and go to properties and double check to be sure that change stuck. Advanced. And then scroll down a little bit to speed and duplex. So it did stick on that 1 gigabit per second. And then if we look at status, we see here 1 gigabits per second. Now, I have seen computers, and this is an interesting thing. I have seen computers that I've gone to here that I know they have a 1 gigabit per second network card, but it shows 100 megabits per second right here. And what I wound up tracking that down to is they have a bad Ethernet cable, so it's auto negotiating to a slower speed because the cable's not keeping up to that, or they're connected to a network switch that is a 100 megabit fast Ethernet. It's called network switch that cannot do gigabit. So that is a piece of information. The possibility exists that you have a gigabit network adapter, and with auto negotiate it's showing 100 megabits per second. So then close that guy, and let's get both of our screens back up. There's that one, and here's that one. And now what would you have to do? 20 tests and average out the numbers to determine whether we've got a significant difference over multiple tests. If it's a major different impact, if we all of a sudden see that we're usually getting 900 megabits per second, well, that's an obvious difference. But if we're just getting incrementally better, it may be hard to tell just from these random clicks. And so far, I'd say that we have not seen a major improvement.
No, I'd say it pretty much stayed the same.
Yeah. Now another thing
so far we haven't seen, just in what the 3 or 4 tests that you've done so far, we haven't seen the speed. Well, there it goes. As high as it was the first time.
Right.
So first set. Yeah, because this is, was it 816
Yeah.
or 818?
That brought us back up.
Right.
Yeah. Have the upload numbers been more consistent? I really haven't been paying that much attention to the upload numbers.
Yeah, they have been.
Yeah.
The upload, and I don't know how much ping matters, but the upload and the pings tend to stay pretty much right on from test to test.
Okay. Well, that would be consistent with the notion of the neighborhood effect, because the neighborhood is certainly doing far more downloading than uploading. So how does that work? Somebody's watching a program on TV, for instance, or they're watching videos, or they're playing music. Well, the computer doesn't stream that in a steady fashion. It downloads chunks and then plays those chunks from the buffer in the memory of the computer and stored on the hard drive, and it doesn't do another download again until that buffer runs out. Now you can demonstrate that effect just with your Spotify. If you are playing a song on Spotify and you disconnect your Ethernet cable in the midst of the song, you're going to hear that song continue playing for a while. And if you try that 20 times over, you're probably going to find that it's a different amount of time that it continues playing. It's not consistent because it'll download content for the song that's playing right now, and then it'll stop downloading and just play from the buffer. And then when the buffer starts getting emptied out, it'll download again. So each time that it does a download, or each time that your neighbor's computers are doing downloads, that's likely going to cause you to see slower download speed.
Right. The thing that one of the things that you've said a couple times already is even you, with your level of expertise, look at all of these different test results, and even you can see that it's a pretty big difference between the fastest and the slowest.
Oh yeah.
And that's so just running test after test after test. I don't imagine anyone in the neighborhood is all going to jump on at the same time. So it's like that's what I'm trying to.
Well, not
what I'm calling you is like it goes beyond what I understand.
Yeah.
And like we talked about at the time that you did the updates to the computer in the first place, am I just, fixated, which I tend to do, fixated on this internet speed issue when really it is what it is, and you just need to accept that. So even though I'm paying for a gig and I'm not, what I see in speed tests is only about half of that, and even the test you're running right now, it's such a big difference in results, is that it is what it is, and there's nothing that I can do about it. Because that's also a possibility. It's just been such an issue for me that I'm paying for something that I'm not getting, I guess is the bottom line of what it all comes down to. And again, the major fluctuations between
right.
the peaks and the valleys in speed.
Now these
also really bothered me.
There is something further that you could do to give yourself a better awareness of the truth. These speed tests are really not giving us a good awareness of what I'm quoting right now as the truth. And what I mean by the truth is doing the huge file download that we expect to take 20 minutes to download or 20 minutes to upload, and do the math and see what we're getting over a period of time. Because this is when you made the comment about your neighbors all getting on at the same time. So let's say that 10 of your neighbors that are sharing your connection through Comcast are watching video or playing music, or just browsing the internet. But really, it needs to be media content, because that's where this is going to happen, where their computers will download a chunk of content, and then they'll stop downloading until they need more. Well, at any particular moment in time, 5 of those computers might be in the midst of a download, and then a minute later when you test again, maybe only 2 of them are in the midst of a download, and then you try again and maybe 8 of them are in the midst of a download, because they're going to, it's like the alternating Christmas lights when you drive around and you see different parts of somebody's yard. It has a different pattern, a different frequency, and occasionally those lights concur with each other or synchronize with each other, and you get a very different effect. So what you get in any one of these tests that occur over a period of seconds could be very misleading compared to what you might get by downloading a huge file and try that 20 times over a period of a week, you may find that that works a lot more consistently because it evens out these minor bumps. It's kind of like the stock market. When you're looking at an individual stock, it might do a lot of ups and downs, but over a period of years, it's far more stable than what it looks like in the short term.
Right. Now, as far as the speed itself, which is the whole crux of the matter, is there anything to the fact that when the Xfinity guy was here and connected to the Wi-Fi, he was instantly able to get 800 on his phone, on his iPhone, and I never see that on the computer. Does that, the difference in the Wi-Fi and the computer itself being hardwired, does that tell you anything at all in the speed test that he did just out of the blue on Wi-Fi?
Well, a couple of things. Yes, I don't know what speed test he was using. I have some speed test apps on my cell phone that are measuring the speed of the connection between, I think I'm saying this right, the connection between the phone and the Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi router.
The one that he used, because I happened to see the result, it looked like the speedtest.net is what he was using.
That would make sense. I think showing you a speed test, just the connection between the phone and the Wi-Fi router is really a invalid. What am I trying to say? Immoral thing to show you because
he admitted that he wasn't necessarily a technical guy.
Oh yeah.
When it came to the computer, but he seemed to think, from whatever level he was coming from, that it just shouldn't be the case that he's able to get 800 on his phone over Wi-Fi, but connected with an Ethernet cable, I'm not. He didn't seem to see, and his supervisor that we called during the same time he was here didn't seem to think that made much sense either. But I don't know, how much expertise they actually have.
How many times did he run the test?
It was about 5 or 6.
And he got that number consistently, or
Yeah.
around that number consistently?
Right.
So the only explanation that I can theorize, or I currently can theorize, is if Comcast somehow gives priority to signals that it detects as being mobile devices. I don't know why they would do that. It's easy enough for technology-wise for them to identify a communication that's from a mobile device, but I'm hard-pressed to understand why they would give priority to mobile. Would they? It was probably a company cell phone. Would they give priority to company cell phones? That's kind of grasping at straws. I feel
right. And
creepy
his,
even
his
suggesting.
thing seemed to be, and I know you shouldn't really ever use words like always and never because there's no such thing.
Right.
But just quoting what he said, it shouldn't ever be the case that a computer hardwired to the modem would get a slower speed than a device that's connecting via Wi-Fi.
Well, actually, I just came up with an idea of how that might be explainable. And that's that a computer has a whole lot more stuff going on in the background than a cell phone does. That's a huge deal. If I were to bring up process monitor, that's the best way to show what all is going on in the background. We'd have to download it from Microsoft. It's part of the sysinternals tools. And now wait a minute. This is a computer that I worked on before, right?
Oh yeah. This is the one that you upgraded to Windows 10 and did all that.
Okay. Let's see if it's already there, because that's a folder I commonly put on a computer in this SW setup, DougBetts tools. How about that? All right. So sysinternals. And then I'll click on any one of these and type PR to get down to that part of the alphabet. And we're looking for a process monitor, the application. I believe that one will do it. Double click. Agree to the terms. Answer yes. Okay, so then we'll maximize this window. So I'm waiting for, we are not responding up at the top. There it's filled in. I'm going to make this time column bigger by double clicking on the right border of the title of that column. So we see this 12:31, so it's 12:31 p.m. right now in 53 seconds, and then we see a decimal portion of the seconds. So here's the next item. That one's 792, this one's .0793. So you can see how the time goes up with each line. Okay, so look at all of this stuff that is during the 53rd second of the 31st minute. So now I'm going to, over here on the scroll bar, I'm going to click in the blank area below the scroll bar, which means we go down one page worth at a time. So here's my first click. We're still at 53. Here's the next click, still at 53. So that here's 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Now I'm going to stop right there. I got to 26, and notice we're at 53.124. How long is it going to be before we get to the 54th second? Well, we got to get up to a 9 in this position, and all of this has been at the 12. And if I scroll back up to the top of this, I think we started out at, well, we started out at 0.07. So we did go up by 0.4 of a second with all of those clicks. So each line of this is a different process that your CPU is attending to. So when we do a speed test, there's all this other stuff going on in the background, and it is not in a consistent manner, because if some program or some driver decides that it needs to do something, it's gonna go spew out a whole bunch of stuff. Now down here in the bottom left corner, we see this showing number. This is how quickly the numbers are increasing. So this digit right here, the third digit from the left for showing, 280, 281, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each digit there is 1,000 things that the processor has done. It's pretty busy, and we're not doing anything. We're not doing a speed test yet. So let's bring up a speed.
Now in the result column, any of the ones that don't say success, whether they say name not found,
right,
end of file, buffer overflow, reparse, I guess is what that means.
Right.
Does that, anything that doesn't say success, does that point to anything?
No, those are all normal.
Okay.
Those are all normal and expected. So let's get our speed test back from, let's see here. Now, so what we'll do to get a handle on this is I'm going to hit the test again, and then I'm going to start calling out that thousands digit and see if we can tell any difference. I mean, that's not a very scientific measurement, but we still see that these numbers are changing a little bit quicker than 1 per second, it seems like. Okay, so test again. So 0, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 3, 4, 11. Wow, jumped up by tens. 43, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55. So that seemed to really speed up a lot. And we got a high number there. So this goes to your question about, does it make sense that the cell phone could have got a higher speed test? And this really could be an explanation to justify that, because a cell phone doesn't have nearly as much stuff going on in the background as a computer does. A cell phone's processor is far slower than a computer's processor, far less capable. And that's because we want long battery life, and we don't want to have to put fans on our cell phones.
Right.
So they operate very different than a computer does. All right, how are we doing? I suggest we let me publish this video and see what kind of comments we get. Finally, jeez. That's what I get for doing a pop-up recording that I haven't properly prepared for. I'm going to find some way to turn your voice up because you're too soft.
Well, I can solve that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think that'll work. So there's Eric, everybody.
I am.
A longtime friend and has been a client. He's not working for the company that he used to be a client for me, and had some personal interactions with him over the years. And to my cringing, I think where we most significantly got to know each other was in the barbershop chorus. I cringe at admitting that because I am not a talented singer. You and everyone else was, and you were actually a director there.
Yeah.
And then I also knew you because your uncle was my insurance agent from when I first got my driver's license.
Yep. We're all over the place.
Yeah. So I think we'll call this a wrap at this point, and see what comments we get, and then based upon that, strategize as to maybe doing a large upload or download, and see if there's interest in getting that kind of a test.
So for right now, if we've at least ruled out that it's not a hardware issue, like all of my hardware is fine. It's not necessarily a connection issue. All my cables should be fine. I think at the time you updated the computer, I actually switched to a Cat 6, which I think you said it really does, it's not going to make that much of a difference, but I did anyway, because I was in a buying mood. So I have got Cat 6 cable. So all that stuff is good. It's just, if there is an issue that can be resolved, it's in the computer itself.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, then we're done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to click to end the Zoom session and then disconnect from your computer.
You'll send me a link to the video?
Yeah, once I upload it. I've got to upload it. I got to check it first to be sure that it's publishable. Okay. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks. So if you've got thoughts or if you run tests on your computer, please put that information in the comments. This has been a subject in a conversation that has come up many times with various different people. You have my email address there if you have something in regards to it that you don't want to put in the comments, but I'd rather have it in the comments, frankly. And any back and forth discussion about this subject, I'd rather have it in the comments from the video. The email address is really if you'd like to do a remote support session. That's really the reason why I publish that email address. So if you'd like to do a Zoom connection and remote connection to your computer, and usually I like to do that during a live stream. Eric just called me and I decided to hit the record button after I got his permission. So this is kind of a different video. I hope that was useful. Catch you later. Goodbye.